So I've done this thing a couple of times to you now where I've said, hey, maybe what's recorded in the Old Testament did not happen historically. So with Adam and Eve, and then also with the Exodus, and even with the flood, I said, okay, these are narratives that tell us something that is theologically true, something that's true about God, but is not historically true. And that can be a little bit jarring for students. And so I want to be sensitive to that. And I want to tell you that you can leave open the idea that these things are historically true. I'm not trying to force you into my way of thinking about these things, but I do want to make that information available to you, make that viewpoint available to you, just so that you have it in case you need it at some point in time. One of the things that I want to talk with you about right now along these lines is the difference between truth and fact. So truth versus fact, what do I even mean by that? And how can I even make that distinction? Well, one of the things that is kind of important to me is that there are certain things in this world and in life that can be true and not be fact. And that's kind of hard to explain. So for example, it is both true and fact that clouds are made up of little tiny water droplets, right? It is both true and fact that gravity exists. However, sometimes the truth can be expressed in a way that is not factual or historically accurate. So I'm going to give you an example right now, and it is a gushy and I don't know, probably an example that might make you feel uncomfortable, but I don't care because I'm on video and I'm not there in person, but you might call me up later and be like, Dr. Segas, that's weird. All right, so here's an example. I'm going to tell you the story of when I met my husband. So I met my husband in seminary, and there was this big room called the Great Room where people would do their homework. And I was walking through the Great Room one day, and I saw the cutest guy in the world. He was so dreamy, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's just a dreamer son. And so I walked over to him, and I said, hi there, my name is Anna. What are you up to? And he was like, oh, I'm doing my Greek homework. And I don't know if you've ever had one of those experiences where you broke the touch barrier and you like touched the person that you kind of like and you kind of got shivers. Well, when I touched him that day, I put my hand on his shoulder and electricity moved through my body from my head to my toes. And I was like, oh, I just touched the cutest guy in the world. This is the best day. And we chatted for a little while about Greek and a little while about Hebrew. And my heart was just going a million miles a minute the whole time. And I left there that day walking on clouds and singing a song in my heart. I opened the doors to the Great Room. There were these big double doors, and the world was new, and there were birds singing in the trees, and there were flowers flourishing everywhere, and it was just the most miraculous day. So that is the story of how I met my husband, and that story is true. I am telling you the truth about my experience of meeting my husband, but some parts of that are not factual. So, for example, electricity didn't really move through my whole body when I touched him, right? And I didn't actually walk on clouds as I was leaving there. And some of you may argue that he's not the cutest guy in the world, and you would be wrong, but you could argue that. Similarly, I met him in October in Massachusetts, and when I opened the doors, there was snow on the ground. I know, sometimes it snows there in Massachusetts, and it was a frigid, cold day, but man, y'all, it might as well have been a spring day with birds chirping and flowers on the trees. So what I told you, the story I told you, was not factually accurate. The facts weren't right, but it was more true than if I had just gone through, it was October 25th. I walked through the Great Room. I saw a white male about 32 years old, 6'2", sitting at a round table. I spoke words to him and touched his shoulder. Then I walked through the doors into the frigid October day. That doesn't communicate to you the event properly, because this was a big event in my life. And so the best way that I can describe it is to describe the effect that it had on me. So there are going to be times throughout the course of the semester when I say that something, a narrative, is true but isn't fact. What I mean by that, and I did this with the Exodus, I think that the story of the Exodus, of God parting the waters for the people to walk through on dry land, is true. I think that is really what the people of God experienced, in the best way that they could come up with to describe God's saving power, that God parts the waters for people, that they walk through on dry land. But it may not be factual. The actual fact of the matter may have been something completely different. Maybe there weren't 600,000 Israelites. Maybe the sea was, I don't know, a smaller body of water, or maybe God's deliverance didn't involve water at all, but the best way they could think to describe it was that their God, the Creator God, had moved waters for them again. I don't know, but when you read the story of the Exodus, you know that it's pointing to something that's true, to something that they actually experienced. It may not be fact, and it might be. You can decide what to believe yourself. For me, I'm going to say it may not be fact. We don't have evidence to back that up, but man, it's true. God is a delivering God. God moves waters for people to walk through on dry ground. So probably going to come back to this again a couple of times, truth versus fact. So this is just one of my things that I really like, truth versus fact. And if you have any questions about it, please email me. I'd love to talk with you about it, or you can call me up during office hours. I've got my phone number listed for you. Okay? All right. Thanks, guys.